And welcome back, Bears fans, to another episode of the Bears Brothers podcast. It's Monday, April 24th, and we are 3 days away from the NFL draft, and soon we will find out exactly who will be a part of the Bears 2017 rookie class. Who will the Bears take with the third pick? Will Chicago even pick at number 3? When or will the Bears draft a quarterback? Can Ryan Pace put together another highly successful draft class in back-to-back years? It'll all be clear soon enough as the draft goes underway on this Thursday coming up. I'm your host, Will DeWitt, and today I'm joined by both of my Bears brothers, as Brandon Hazlett and Nicholas Moriano are here to join to discuss their personal draft strategies and unveil their mock drafts. So, gents, I have a question to open up the show. If you had to give a one-word answer about how you're feeling about the upcoming draft, what would it be? Brandon?
Does it have to be one word?
Yes.
Uncertain, but my other answer was very uncertain.
Oh, hell, okay. Well, so, I'll give you that. You get a pass on the two, but uncertain for Brandon. Nick, how about you?
Okay, we did not rehearse this before going to the show. We didn't discuss. I didn't say my word before we went on air. My word was uncertain too. Brandon, I have no idea what's going to happen in this draft. From like 1 to 5, it can go any which way. So uncertain, very uncertain. I have no idea what's going to happen in this draft.
Guys, I'm freaking out because mine was not uncertain. But if I had to give my answer, mine's adrenalized because I am beyond ready for Thursday. We've been doing mock drafts for 2 months now. And to be honest, after this show, I never want to say the word mock draft for at least another 10 months because I don't know. There's just only so much you can do in terms of predicting the pick so many times. And now we just have to wait and see. But that said, I am excited about this show and I am ready to get into it. So guys, let's just get started because Bears fans have been waiting long enough. Let's unveil our final complete mock drafts for this year, something I'm very excited for. And let's start with the first round, the Bears selecting at 3rd overall pick. Brandon, let's go to you first. Who do you got?
I have Jonathan Allen. He is now 4 for 4 in all of my mock drafts. He has the shoulder issues, but according to Dr. Lyle Kane, told Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network, that this is something a lot of offensive linemen and defensive linemen have. Things guys play with their whole careers. It's just a little earlier for him because he was hurt in college. So the level of concern has dropped for me, but I understand why there still is a level of concern amongst fans whether or not they should take him at number 3. And I think he'll fill that void just immediately where Mitch Unrein's at on the other end of the defensive line, opposite of Akeem Hicks and next to Eddie Goldman. And he'll just be that immediate impact player. He's athletic. He's smart. He just seems to find himself in the right spot at the right time more times than not. And that's why I really like him, is just his ability to be a playmaker.
That's very solid. So Brandon's taking Jonathan Allen out of Alabama with the 3rd overall pick. But Nick, if you were in Ryan Pace's head right now, if you're in his shoes, I know you have quite the controversial pick coming up. So lay it on us. Who do you got?
I started off with Jonathan Allen, my first mock, went Jamal Adams, the number 2, number 3, then went for the wild card. I'm hearing that quarterbacks are going to go high, and I know Ryan Pace wants to draft a guy for the future. So when I was looking at what potentially the Cleveland Browns and San Francisco 49ers might do, it could be Trubisky and Deshaun Watson 1 and 2. It could be. We have no idea. So I looked at the next best guy. Yeah, who knows? Could the Browns actually pass him out, Garrett? I have no idea. It's the Browns, though. But I went Patrick Mahomes. He has so much upside. And this guy, obviously, I think he has the best arm in the draft. He threw 50 touchdowns last season. And people are comparing him to Brett Favre. We know how Brett Favre played, and he did win a Super Bowl, but that he wouldn't be he would sit behind Mike Glenn and learn the offense. And that's what I would want from a guy who is, still has some time to develop. I think all the quarterbacks in the first round should sit. And I think that if Ryan Pace is going to look to address the quarterback position, he has to do it at number 3. If you wait too long, those top 4 guys, top 5 guys, if you're looking at, we're probably not going to make it to the second round. So if there's a chance for Ryan Pace and he likes his guy, I think he'll go quarterback. Maybe it's Mahomes, but I like Mahomes over the other guys, especially at number 3, potentially if, those first 2 are gone at that position.
Real quick, Will, before you hop in there, I know I missed the last podcast, but I watched it, and Nick didn't bring up anything about Green Bay. And all of a sudden that I'm back on for 2 episodes in a row that I'm on, he's bringing up a Green Bay comparison. Come on, man.
I'm sorry. The Tribune actually compared him, or it was Brad Biggs who compared him to Brett Favre. So I'm just reiterating what he said.
I heard early on comparisons to Jay Cutler, and we all know Jay Cutler is no Brett Favre. So I I don't know. I don't know exactly how I feel about Mahomes, especially at number 3. I think that would be quite a reach. I think if they did go get him, I would prefer the Bears trade back, get some extra picks as well. But I understand your logic there, and I think if that's Pace's guy, then you have to do it, and then you make sure you don't miss out on him for sure. But for me, guys, for the 3rd overall pick, I have the Chicago Bears going with the tried and true Jamal Adams, the safety out of LSU, because first and foremost, I am just enamored with his drive and determination. He inspires teammates, he elevates their play, and he always sets the standard. Adams, coupled with freshly signed Quinton Demps, would be a vast improvement from the duo of those out there last season of Adrian Amos and Harold Jones-Corte. Adams, he's well-versed. He can cover in zone. He can cover in man. He has the ball skills to create turnovers. He's a reliable last line of defense. And after Demps' time is up, I think it would be Adams who would take over and lead the secondary. To me, when I see him, he's the next Eric Berry. He will be a household name. And I think if the Bears take him with the 3rd overall pick, Adams will be the next great Bears safety since Mike Brown. And when I just think of Adams, a couple of traits that come to mind: A, his leadership; B, his versatility and his violent play; and then lastly, his ability to start from the get-go. Yeah, I think he can step in from day one and be an immediate upgrade for this Bears secondary, which I think if with the Bears, with their 3rd overall pick, they should find someone who can start day one and make an impact, which I understand, Nick, with the quarterback situation, you want them to wait for a year, which they would do if that's exactly what they would go quarterback with the 3rd pick. But I think Bears fans really wanted to see someone get taken in that 1st round, that 3rd pick, and be able to start on September 10th against the Falcons. That's just my opinion, but I'm sure that I'm not alone there. So if you're listening or watching live right now, go ahead and tweet us. I want to know, at the Bears Bros, who had the best pick for the 1st round? Was it Brandon with Jonathan Allen, Nick with Patrick Mahomes, or myself, Will, with Jamal Adams, the safety out of LSU? Let us know. We're interested to hear what you have to say. But guys, let's move on to round 2 with the 36th overall pick, and let's flip around the order, and I'll go ahead and start. And my pick here, guys, is DeShone Kizer, the quarterback out of Notre Dame. And I know what most Bears fans are thinking. There's no way Kaiser's going to be there at number 36, right? Well, I actually think there's actually a pretty solid chance after everything that's kind of unfolded after the past few weeks with comments from Brian Kelly, wrong Kelly. But really, I think the only roadblock looking at the draft board is going to be the Steelers near that back end of the 1st round. But if he escapes Pittsburgh, I have a hunch that he might just end up being there at 36. And if he's there at 33 and the Bears really want to go get him, they can trade up to go get him without losing too much more as well. But I think that just is the most best option to get a playmaker with the 1st pick. And now you get your quarterback who develops for a season with the 2nd round pick here, because there will be no rush for Kizer to play, like you said, sit behind Glennon for a season or maybe even 2 while he grows both off and on the field, something we all know he needs to do. But Kizer is a big-body, athletic passer that reminds people of Steve McNair. Not a bad comparison to have. With some time to work on his ball placement and field vision, I think Kizer could be, after to take Glennon's stint in Chicago, after that's all done, he's the next man up, and he can take over and be the guy for the next decade. So I really like that. He's a big arm. He's a dual threat in the red zone. And I like also watching some of his tape, how poised he is in the pocket. Nick, I know you saw that as well when you did your breakdown a month or 2 ago. He'll stay in the pocket for that extra second, even if it means taking a shot. I love that courageousness that he shows in the pocket. That's how you lead a ball club. And I think DeShone Kizer, if he's there in the 2nd round, no way you pass him up. But that's who I have the Bears taking at number 36. Nick, let's hand it over to you. Who do you got?
Yeah, I have Obi Melifonwu, if that's how you pronounce the last name. The Bears upgrading that safety position. This is a guy extremely athletic. When at the combine, I know scouts were just in awe of his performance, and he's capable of doing everything out there. I think he could be a playmaker. You would have, Demps there as a veteran to kind of mentor him into the safety position, like mold him, give him the groundwork and how to develop into being a good safety for us. And Ryan Pace likes to draft these athletes. And I think, Kevin White 2 years ago, Leonard Floyd, maybe you'll get that with the safety with Obi Melifonwu. And, and I like Jamal Adams with that 1st overall pick. I had him in my 2 mock drafts. And then, this safety class is pretty deep. So I think, whatever the Bears do at number 1, I think they can get a quality safety at number 2. I think that Melifonwu, I think he should be there. I don't think he's
that'd be close.
Maybe
same with Kizer.
Bottom line, yeah, very true. Could be the bottom of the 1st where someone would pick him up, but he can deliver the big hit, can cover ground, and he's just extremely athletic. And I think this would be a good pickup. If it's not him, I would expect the Bears, if they don't get safety at that number 3 overall pick, they would address it with that, this in the second round.
Good points there, Nick, with Obi there. But let's move on to Brandon. And Brandon, I know you came out with yours this morning. You wrote it over the weekend before the recent news. But if it's the same, let us know. Who are you taking, or would you have taken at number 36?
Originally, I had a safety as well. It wasn't Obi Melifonwu. I like that pick if he's there. I just don't know that he'll be there. But currently, as of this morning, before the news broke, I had Jabril Peppers from Michigan. I think that his ability to play multiple positions scares teams away, as they don't know where exactly he fits perfectly, as he's not necessarily big enough to be a linebacker, and his ball production isn't necessarily there as a safety or a cornerback, but he can play those positions just fine. He can keep up with a lot of people. He has a 4.46 40-yard dash that he ran at the combine. But with the diluted sample that was found, or that he gave at the combine, made me really upset, because now is he hiding something? I don't know. That's something that if I was Ryan Pace, I wouldn't want to risk. So I'm looking at Fabian Moreau, the cornerback out of UCLA. I've had him in a couple past mock drafts. They added a lot of cornerbacks, and I also have one later in my mock draft. So I'm not sure that it's the best pick, but if I'm replacing Jabril Peppers, I'm going to do it with Fabian Moreau, because he's a very athletic guy. He shined in the All-Star game. It wasn't the Senior Bowl. He didn't get an invite. It was the All-Star game. I don't know what they call it. But he shined there, and his athleticism was finally recognized at the combine. I don't have his combine stats in front of me right now, but he's jumped up the boards quite a bit. Originally a 4th or 5th round guy, all the way up to the 2nd round where I've seen him. And I think that would be a good spot for the Bears to pick him up if he's there. Or if not, if Obi Melifonwu was there, I would take him as well. But with Jabril Peppers, recent news coming today, really upsetting me as far as this pick goes, because I thought I had it all locked in, and now I don't.
No, seriously, real talk, Brandon. Real talk, Brandon. How pissed are you about that news after you had him selected in round 2?
It diluted my mood.
Ooh, snap. I like it.
Bang.
All right, so with the 36th pick, we want to know who you thought had the best one. Sorry, Brandon. But so Brandon had Jabril Peppers, the safety out of Michigan. Nick took Obi Melifonwu out of Connecticut. And I had Deshaun Kaiser, the quarterback out of Notre Dame. Tweet us at The Bears Bros. Let us know on Facebook at facebook.com/The Bears Bros. Or even email us at thebearsbrothers@gmail.com. Whatever way you want to let us know. Our ears were open, ready to receive feedback.
Can I sway the vote to not Deshaun Kaiser?
No.
Just okay.
You yourself.
I'm not a Kaiser fan, so that's why I want to do that.
We know. Okay. All right, so let's move on to round 3 with the 67th overall pick. And Mr. Kaiser hater, you're up first. So what do you got?
I want to, if I'm Ryan Pace, I want to surround a quarterback, maybe of the future, maybe not of the future, Mike Glennon, with more talent around him. This was something that I said I wanted to address, that I think is a good opportunity to address in the draft. And so I have them taking Chad Hansen, the wide receiver out of the Cal Golden Bears. So he already has experience as a Bear, a Golden Bear.
That's always a plus.
He knows what he's doing. He's very good at work in the middle of the field. He's not scared to go over the middle. He knows where he's at on the sideline. He's very good at getting his feet in, and he's very elusive for his size at 6'2". He accelerates very quickly in the open field. I don't want to say very rarely because I don't know the percentage, but he makes the first guy miss frequently. And I think giving the possible yak that comes with Chad Hansen to Mike Glennon will give Mike Glennon a chance to have a reliable receiver. Whether or not he plays right away, that's a different question. But I think it provides Mike Glennon with an opportunity to help a new receiver break into the league with his talent.
All right, Nick, let's hand it over to you. If the Bears are on the clock with the 67th overall pick, who are you selecting?
They're going to select Marcus Walker, the defensive end out of Florida State. I think that the Bears definitely need to address the defensive end position opposite of Akeem Hicks, Eddie Goldman. Mitch Unrein, he wasn't a big impactful player last season. And I think Walker, who's for some reason very underrated, he had a very good season last season, had 17 sacks, which is the second most in college football. The knock on him is small. He's 6'4", 280 pounds. And I looked at other guys in the draft. Solomon Thomas is 6'3", 273. He's bigger than Solomon. Okay, so if his knock is like size, he's bigger than Thomas. But experts have said that Solomon Thomas would have been perfect for the Bears. Would have fit him perfectly. Jonathan Allen, 6'3", 286. He's a little smaller than him, but experts have also said that he would have been good in the Bears system. So I don't get why his size is a factor into why people are saying that he can't be a good player. I think obviously I watched a little bit of his tape. The guy has a motor. It doesn't matter, regardless of wherever the ball carrier's going, he's going to go hunt down the ball, help his teammates make the tackle. And he's really good at timing the quarterback with the passes. He gets a lot of batted down passes. And I think that if he's there at number 3, you got to address that position early on, because there's some top end pass rushers, and then it just bottoms off. So you're not going to get a impactful player. And I think this guy comes into camp, competes, can get into the defensive line rotation. Probably won't start over Mitch Unrein just because, he has solidified that position for now. But young guy, we need a guy opposite of Akeem Hicks. And I think this guy, if he's there on the board, and the Bears have not addressed the defensive end position yet with the first 2 rounds, third round would be a great place to do that.
All right, good stuff there. Going back to me and my shoes and what I would do if I were Ryan Pace. This is a tough one, and this one might be one of the bigger stretches I do have in my mock, because my mock is more if the board just fell perfectly. But if it did, and Dan Feeney, the guard out of Indiana, was available here in the 3rd round, even though that another interior lineman might not be the biggest need, I think if he's on the board, my gut tells me Pace snags him. He was the most impressive blocker for the Bears-coached North team at the Senior Bowl. He's drawn comparisons to Cody Whitehair, and the Bears did meet with him last week. So if this was Tinder, they would have swiped right, guys, right? I don't know. I'm the married guy, so I don't know. Is that the right way?
Yes.
All right, cool. So I'm not totally out of the loop. But cool. So yeah, if the Bears, this is Tinder, they would have swiped right on him. But did I also mention that he paved the way for Jordan Howard at Indiana back in 2015? He did the same thing for Tevin Coleman in 2014. And he's also very stout in pass pro. He only gave up 2 sacks and 3,355 snaps at Indiana. And right before we went live, I had to do the math of how many percent of plays that actually is, because we all know it's tiny, right? It was actually only a sack on every 0.0006% of snaps played. Holy cow, I want that guy protecting my quarterback. And by drafting Feeney, I think the Bears could think about opting to slide Kyle Long back to tackle. Not sure if that's a wise decision, but it's something that would be on the table. Instead, I think you can use Feeney as a depth piece until Josh Sitton's tenure is complete. He only has 2 seasons left on contract, and he's on the wrong side of 30. So drafting Feeney would give the Bears a plethora of options, all of which I think improve the team. But, this guy, he's super smart. He can recognize stunts and blitzes before the ball snapped. He's solid at reaching the second level, always is in proper position before he actually initiates his block. And again, like I said, he's a stout pass protector, something that you can't have too many of on your ball club. So for me, I would take Dan Feeney, the guard out of Indiana. So this is another moment. If you are listening live and you want to let us know who did the best one with the 3rd overall pick, please let us know. Guys, I'm actually drawing blanks on both of you now that we're getting here in the middle rounds of who you did, but people are listening, so I'm sure they know. But for me, I think this is going to be a good time for a break. And I just want to remind you guys who are listening right now, if you haven't yet, to subscribe to our show on YouTube. That way you get a notification each and every time that we go live, so you never miss a show. Or if you're a podcast listener, would you mind possibly giving us a review on iTunes? Because we are only 14 away from our goal that we want to achieve by the time that the 2017 season kicks off in September. And each review does help us reach more fellow Bears fans like you. So if you are going to do that, thank you. And guys, this leads us to round 4 with the 108th overall pick. And I'm getting tired of talking. So Brandon, let's go back to you and start all over again. Round 4, 108. Who do you got?
Round 4, 108. I have the Bears taking Brad Kaya, quarterback out of Miami University, Florida. Why? Because he is an experienced quarterback under center, and he finished his career with just under 10,000 total yards in 3 years, which he was a starter for each year. One knock that I've heard on him frequently is his pass completion percentage, but that's risen every year, and he's gotten up to 62% in his last year. One thing that I did some little math by myself here, I'm proud of myself for that. In 2016, he had nearly a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Wow.
That's pretty solid.
That's pretty solid, I thought. And then for his career, he was nearly 3-to-1. So again, very solid numbers as far as not turning the ball over. He's got some mechanical issues with his feet, but I really like what he does with his eyes, keeping the safeties at home, not giving away who he's going to pass it to. So he does some good things, but he also has some things to work on. It's a good developmental project for Dow Loggins, I think.
Nick, how about you?
I think the Bears will, add some offense with Carlos Henderson, the wide receiver out of Louisiana Tech. This is a guy that's been consistent in all my mock drafts. At first, his stock wasn't as high, and then after his combine, showed NFL teams what he can do. And last season, he caught 82 passes for 1,535 yards and had 19 touchdowns. And he did this all over the field. He was in the slot, out at wide receiver. He was in the backfield. He would provide versatility to this Bears offense. And right now, there's a bunch of young receivers for the Bears right now. Cameron Meredith is arguably your number one. You have Kevin White. You got, we're trying to still see if Daniel Braverman. I gotta always mention Daniel Braverman. You guys
you have to say his name once per show. That's a rule.
That and the other team from up north, which I won't name this time, but I already did earlier. But but just adding another weapon for Mike Glennon, possibly if he gets any playing time, it's just going to help him out. I mean, the Bears do not have the greatest wide receiver core. But they can address that. They can, add some playmakers in this draft. And this is a guy who doesn't have to primarily line up at wide out or slot. You can put him all over the field and he'll be productive. He did it at Louisiana Tech. I know it's a smaller school, but that doesn't mean that he can't play at the NFL level. So this is the guy that I've liked in all my mock drafts, and I kept him consistent. But with that first pick in the fourth round, they'll go get Henderson.
All right. So going over to me with the 108th overall pick, I have the Bears going after Jaleel Johnson, the defensive end out of Iowa. Again, one of those, hopefully he's there kind of picks. But if he is, I think the Bears go get him. He grew up in Brooklyn, but he did move to Chicago for high school. So he would return to the Windy City, which is always fun. But he's an active player with a high motor. He's quick off the block, and he maximizes his length while shedding blocks. He's earned first-team all-conference honors Big Ten in 2016. He led the Hawkeyes with 10 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks. I think he would provide instant depth across the Bears' defensive line, and I think he'd be in contention to start next to Eddie Goldman, opposite of Akeem Hicks. If the Bears will all the way to the fourth round to find Mitch Unrein's replacement. But I really like his playmaking tools. He has loose hips, a flexible upper body. He can get to the backfield with a variety of moves. He's always working to shed blocks when you watch the tape. He won't quit until the whistle blows, which is really good to see. He compares to Ziggy Hood and brings a ton of value as a pass rusher, not so much as a run stuffer, but as a pass rusher, he does bring a lot to the table. And I think he can easily beat out either Mitch Unrein or Jonathan Bullard to start next season next to Eddie Goldman. But for me, with the 108th overall pick, I have Jaleel Johnson. So this is going to be a moment again to ask you, if you are watching, to let us know who did the best one here with the 108th pick. I had Jaleel Johnson, the defensive end out of Iowa. Brandon took Brad Kaya, the quarterback out of Miami. And Nick went ahead with Carlos Henderson, the wide receiver out of Louisiana Tech.
Before we move on, can I ask Nick if he has a mini scouting report on Jaleel Johnson as well, since he watched him just about every Saturday?
Oh yeah, I mean, the guy has a motor. I think that you're never going to see him take plays off, and I think he's a little better run stopper than you might be giving him credit for, Will, because this guy was an impactful player for Iowa all the years that I've watched him play. But yeah, my professor who covers the Hawkeyes loves him, thinks he's maybe a borderline first round, even maybe second round. So, but you don't know how this draft is going to shape up, what teams are going to address, what their needs are. But yeah, Jaleel Johnson, if he's there in the fourth round, there's no way the Bears can't take him. He would be a great asset to this team, and potentially be competing for that opposite defensive end spot, opposite of Akeem Hicks.
Yeah, first round, I would almost crap my pants if I saw that, to be honest. From what I see, it's third to fourth, second if he hits the lottery, but I think there's a solid chance that he's there in the fourth round. But if I had to give it, maybe it's like 40-60 he's there, which is solid in draft terms when you really don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, but guys, let's move on to the 114th. It's only 6 spots down, so it's pretty much the same pick, almost, kind of. But I'll go ahead and start, and my pick is Josh Reynolds, the wideout out of Texas A&M. He's the only player, guys, that I've had in all 4 versions of my mock draft. So obviously he's special. He's an explosive playmaker, and you can't have too many of those. The Bears already brought in speed by bringing in Marcus Wheaton, Kendall Wright, so why not add more? I'm a big fan of him. Obviously, he's been in every one of my mock drafts. He finished last season with 61 catches and 12 touchdowns. He's a dangerous vertical threat that would help the Bears stretch the field. He also dominates in the red zone, and I think he'd be an excellent option in this Bears offense. And obviously, not knowing how Wheaton, Wright, and even Kevin White are going to pan out in 2017, I think the Bears would be wise to invest a draft pick in a young player such as Reynolds. When I looked at the tape, some things that I noticed was that he has very dominant explosion, and he can beat out corners, and he plays much faster than his 4.5 40 time. He has superior ball skills and climbs all the way up the ladder to go ahead and make the catch. He can win over the top with his back shoulder and inside off slants, so he's very versatile with his repertoire of moves. And he's kind of thin when you look at him. Like, he reminds me of Cameron Meredith a little bit, but the dude is ultra competitive and plays big, and he does not fear the middle of the field. And I think if Josh Reynolds is there in the 4th round, which everything's looking like he would be, this would be a great pickup because I think his talent is just going to catch up with him as he gets to work on his body, kind of like a Leonard Floyd type of deal. As he grows a little bit older, adds a little bit of more muscle to his frame, he's only going to get more dangerous as a receiver in the league. So I think this would be a great one. Maybe not so much for 2017, but 2018, with some time under him, I think he can really step up and be a difference maker for this Bears offense. So let's go back to you, Nick. Who do you have here?
I have Rasul Douglas, the cornerback out of West Virginia, and he was on my first mock draft. And I took him off because of the additions of Prince Mukamura and Marcus Cooper. But he's a playmaker. In his senior year, he had 8 interceptions, which was tied for the most in college football. And at 6'2", he's got great size, so he can match up against those bigger wide receivers. I wouldn't think he'd be, day one starter by any means, but we need depth. We need guys that we need playmakers in the secondary. Because obviously, it's like a broken record. The Bears have been, need to address that season in, season out, but they still haven't. They're still lacking those turnovers each season. So, but with Douglas, he's a little hesitant when making tackles. He looks like he's afraid to go in and make a tackle. But, I think that maybe those are particular games. But if he's a playmaker, then, hey, it kind of overshadows that a little bit. But you're not asking your corners to make every single tackle in the game. So they're out there to make plays, the lockdown receivers. He doesn't have the, that top end speed, but, training in the NFL, being with a professional team, maybe you can increase that just a little bit. But Douglas, I think, would add depth to the position at cornerback. Like we said, we signed the guys at free agency. We don't know how long they're going to be there. Amukamura's only got a 1-year deal, basically. So we'll see what happens. But a good developmental guy who can, by the Bears, can develop, and with Vic Fangio, he loves to get the most out of his players. So this is one of those guys who I think Fangio could get the most out of if he does get drafted with that second pick in the 4th round.
All right, good stuff there. Brandon, let's hand it over to you. Who do you have?
I am taking Jalen Myrick, the cornerback out of Minnesota. Kind of what Nick said, piggybacking off of that, it's something the Bears need to address is playmaking skills, but oddly enough, this is not something that this guy does. The one interception that I remember that he had, you see her at Purdue, and he returned it right in my face because it was a pick 6, and I was sitting in the end zone where he returned it, so that was kind of upsetting at the time. But now looking at it, like, hey, I kind of want him because he's fast. He ran a 4.28 40-yard dash, I think was kind of overlooked by John Ross running the 4.22, the wide receiver out of Washington. He doesn't, like I said, he doesn't necessarily turn the ball over a whole lot, but he had a low completion rate for passes thrown his way. I think it was 39%. So while he's not going to force very many turnovers, this may be a chance to upgrade. I like Bryce Callahan a lot at the slot, but maybe this is a chance to upgrade at the position a little bit.
All right. You and Nick both went corner. Nick took Rasul Douglas. You took Jalen Myrick. I took a wide receiver here with the 114th pick, Josh Reynolds out of Texas A&M. So let us know who you thought had the best pick here with the 114th pick. But guys, let's move on to the 5th round. We have 2 more picks left each. So give it all you got. Brandon, let's go to you. Who do you got?
This is my wild card pick. I have Travis Rudolph, the wide receiver out of Florida State. I know you've heard of him, where he was sitting at lunch with Bo Paskey in the middle school. I don't remember what he had, but he was a big fan of Travis Rudolph, and he sat with him at lunch, and it was a big storyline. So his off the field character is where he wanted. He's not going to get himself into trouble. And then my reasoning for him being the wild card pick is, did we expect Jordan Howard to be drafted in the 5th round? So my answer is no. I think that's pretty safe for everyone else. So why not put Travis Rudolph in there? I think this is just another opportunity to give Mike Glennon some options, add some depth to the position that isn't necessarily the best on the team. He's pretty reliable. In 2015, he had 59 receptions, and in 2016, he had 56 receptions, 7 touchdowns both those seasons. He's got a good catch radius. It shows his highlight reel. He's not going to burn anybody away with an extra gear, but he's a reliable receiver, which is something that I think that the Bears need, especially with the uncertainty of Kevin White, and we're not totally sure what Kendall Wright has been with his injury history, how long he'll be playing, or even Eddie Royal for that matter, in
Or
recent
Marcus
years,
Wheaton.
or Marcus Wheaton for that matter. So I'd like to see them bring in somebody reliable, and I think Travis Rudolph is a step in that direction. While he may not have the talent to blow you away, I think he's a reliable option at wide receiver.
2 wide receivers in your mock draft. That's a
You bet.
surprise, but I understand your logic behind it. It does make sense when you think about it. But Nick, let's hand it over to you. Who do you have the Bears taking in the 5th round?
Yeah, the Bears are going to address that offensive line, especially the tackle position, with Eric Magnuson from Michigan. It's a guy who's played at both tackle positions, and with Bobby Massey and Leno Jr., you know, they had decent seasons. At the beginning, Massey was struggling, but it was rough. We were like, who's Massey going against each and every week? That was a storyline each week matchup. But he did pick it up. I will give him credit. He did pick it up towards the end of the season. But they do need to add some tackles, some depth at least. And he's a really good run blocker. That's where he excels. It's just that quick first step with, defensive ends in the NFL that have that quick first step. He needs to be able to block and, get his depth and be able to be in position to block those strong, fast, athletic defensive ends. But Magnuson, I think, is a potential pick. Massey and Leno Jr. are going to be their starting tackles going into next season. So it's a guy that will just learn under the system, be, behind a bunch of great guys. And, with Kyle Long being the leader of that whole entire offensive line group, he's only going to learn from, the best and hopefully learn some of those leadership qualities going down the road. You never know who's going to be there next season if he has to step up and the injury happens, because we know how the Bears and the injuries have been, storylines each and every season. But this guy would develop. He'd be another tackle that can play. But this is who I think they'll draft with their 5th round pick.
All right. For me, I have the Bears taking Cole Hikutini, the tight end out of Louisville. So for me, the Bears get back-to-back playmakers, with Reynolds being the last pick and now Hikutini. But he had a really strong season last year. He finished it with 49 catches, 656 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He's a dangerous threat that moves well in space. He has the speed to attack the top of linebackers. He does need to improve his blocking to become a legitimate NFL tight end, which is usually the case with most mid to late round tight ends as well. But that said, there is no rush for him to play behind Zach Miller and Deion Sims atop of the depth chart. But Hikutini can be a sleeper pick for me in the 5th round. I really like his natural hands, his ability to extend plays after the catch. But my question for you guys, and I want Brandon to go first. Why didn't you take a tight end?
I like how deep it is, but I just think that you're missing out on talent at other positions that I don't want to say are of need, but are ones that you can't necessarily pass up. I like what this tight end class has to offer. It's deep, but I just don't see where it fits into the draft for me at this point.
Nick, how about you?
I had a tight end in my last mock draft, but then I realized, the Bears have, I think, 6 tight ends on their roster right now. So, and they did just, pick up a tight end free agency. They have Zach Miller. You don't know if he's going to stay healthy, but there's Daniel Brown's a guy that I'm high on. I think that if he gets an opportunity, he can catch. He's a really good route runner, really, can catch the ball. So I think if you give these younger guys a chance, there's also Ben Brockner is also on the depth chart. So they're guys, give them a chance. I think they can develop. So, but I just had a tight end in my last mock, and I just wanted to switch it out to, address that cornerback position a little bit more with that first pick in the 4th round. But yeah, I definitely could have taken a tight end, but I just went the other way with it.
No, that all makes sense, guys. I was just curious because a lot of people do have the Bears taking a tight end somewhere. I've even saw possibly taking O.J. Howard in the 1st round. So just for you guys not having any, I just wanted to know what was the reasoning behind it. But again, there's so many needs across this Bears team. And as of right now, there's only 7 picks. It's really kind of hard to fill in each and every void. You kind of have to pick which one's going to be neglected a little bit. But with that said, let's move on to the final round, round 7.
Before we move on,
oh my gosh,
I want to offer you a proposition. If I get any votes for my pick, I will give them all to you if you can spell Hikutini's last name without looking at it.
Yeah, Hikutini.
I don't know if that's right.
Oh, what the heck? Well, then
you have it in front of you, I would imagine. So
I closed my eyes.
I know you did, but I imagine you got it on your notes there.
Well, I've only typed it like 60 times in the past 2 weeks.
I guess you get all my votes by the default then.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on.
I didn't think you could do it, so that's why I...
Round 7. 226th overall pick. This is a big pick, and I've been waiting to get to it because this is the one that makes or break the draft class. No, I'm kidding. So anyway, Brandon, I'm going to go ahead and just kick this one over to you then because you're all chatty over there. So what do you got with the 7th round pick?
I have 2 wide receivers in this draft, and I'm going with my second defensive lineman. I don't think he'll start there for the Bears if he even starts. I mean, he's not going to start. But he plays defensive end in college at TCU. Josh Caraway. I had him in my first mock draft. I said he was a very Leonard Floyd type player just with his body. He's only got like an additional 20 pounds on him to what Leonard Floyd has. And they play a similar style. But what I like about Caraway is he can play multiple techniques, whether it be the 5 or a stand-up guy. And I think it would make sense with his pass rushing ability to make him a stand-up outside linebacker and be a pass rusher that way. And what I don't like about him is just that he's stiff when he comes around the bend on the tackles to try and get there. But other than that, I think he's a very valuable in the multiple ways that he could be used, whether on the defensive line or as an outside linebacker. He's versatile in being a pass rusher regardless where you put him.
All right, Nick, handing it over to you. What do you got?
Yeah, the round 7, 226 overall, this player is definitely going to be there on the Bears roster when, it's all said and done. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, don't tell Charles Leno Jr. this.
No, yeah, seriously. You never know with these these late picks, but I have Ezra Robinson, cornerback out of Tennessee State. He's listed at 5'11". He's a playmaker, just like my other corner that I have in my draft. He had a career high 5 interceptions, 2 of them which he returned for pick sixes. The Bears, obviously, I said this when talking about Rasul Douglas, that they need playmakers. Is a guy who has shown that he can do it in the past, but this is a late round pick. There are 12 cornerbacks listed on the Bears roster right now, so there's no guarantee that Robinson would make this roster, but just add more competition. You're there, you're a late round pick, you're there to prove yourself, to show that you can play in this league. You should be here. So that's who I have going. I think that cornerback with what the Bears have, it's not the greatest, and the more competition, the better. These guys are going to be fighting for a starting spot. Not necessarily Robinson, but just fight to make the roster.
All right, moving over to me. My pick is Isaac Rochell, the defensive tackle out of Notre Dame. And honestly, guys, the more I think about it, the more I think trying to predict who the Bears are going to select in the 7th round, it may as well be pointless because there are just like too many variables at play here. With that said, I think there's an outside chance that Rochell's still on the board when the Bears are on the clock in the 7th round. And I think he'd be a pretty good fit. I really like his motor. Every time you look at his scouting report, that's like the number one thing. He's like a hard hat, lunch pail type player who always gives a continual effort and just is a whistle to whistle type of player. I think he can step into the rotation, just provide some depth, perhaps as a rookie if he makes a team. And I think he has the power to play 5 tech, but also the size to perhaps bump inside. But as of now, he should not be on the field on 3rd downs, and he's just more of like a developmental kind of guy, which would be every single 7th round pick, unless somehow you hit the biggest diamond in the rough that possible. But that said, Charles Leno. I don't think he was a pretty big diamond in the rough. I give you that. All right, guys, but that was our mock draft. So I want to thank you all for watching. But before we go, guys, I have one final question for you, and it is, if none of your picks are correct, or even if you're just totally wrong, which, be honest, all 3 of us were probably totally wrong. What are some things that you hoped are just accomplished this weekend by Ryan Pace and company as they go through draft weekend? Brandon, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. What are you thinking?
If he continues to get guys on the rise, guys that continue to grow, I think that's something that he's really stressed. And if he continues to do that, then I think this team is definitely headed in the right direction as far as potential goes. With that being said, I also would like to see some impact players right away come in and shake up the depth chart a little bit. But other than that, I'm looking for guys who are going to be on the rise and guys who will come in to be immediate impact players.
All right, Nick, handing it over to you.
Yes, Brandon, you said it. You see what Ryan Pace has done the last couple drafts. We've had guys that have been starters for us, across the offensive line, at wide receiver, everywhere on this depth chart. We've had young guys. Safety, exactly. We've had young guys become starters. And I want to see that, again in this draft. It might – maybe, obviously you want to see your 1st round pick go out there and play because that is your 1st round pick. But, in that 4th round, maybe you get some guys that can go out there and, compete for starting jobs. That's what I want to see from Pace. Just pick out – he usually does it best player available. I want to see him, go that route again, do what's best for this roster, what this team needs. And if, the later picks, those are very important picks, no doubt about it. So Pace has done a good job. I have all the faith in him, but yeah, I want to see guys that are go out there and compete in this depth chart and, maybe play on Sundays.
Very nice, guys. If I were able to sit next to Ryan Pace for a few minutes and have a talk, which would be awesome if that ever happened. But I just let them know, hey, bring in some kids who can come in and contribute to the culture that you're trying to establish here for this Bears team. Bring in guys who buy into the system, buy into the program, who want to be Chicago Bears. And by doing so, you're going to bring in players who are hungry to play, hungry to turn the losing, culture that we've had here over the past 5 or so years. And that's where I really hope that happens. I hope that, like you guys said, everyone wants people to come in and contribute right away. But if you don't have anyone on your board when you're selecting in the mid rounds that you don't think can become a starter right away, which, to be honest, you don't want every year your rookie class starting, or else you're just always continuously starting over. If you can find guys who can be great pieces, role players, depth pieces, guys who you can groom for 2 years down the line to take over some of these veterans who are on those 1 to 2 year deals, I think that's the best way to go about it. And that's what I really hope gets accomplished this weekend, is bringing in the right guys with the right attitude who want to learn, want to continue to work hard, and turn this ship around. That's what we need here in Chicago. And honestly, we can't have too many guys like that. And I think you're seeing that with guys in free agency. They're all talking about how hungry they are, how much the Bears wanted them, how special they feel. I hope they do the same with the rookies, because it really motivates these guys to go out there, play on Sundays, and really wear the navy and orange with pride. And that's what I want to see from this rookie class. And hopefully you can duplicate last year's, because that was pretty darn amazing. But guys, I think that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. I want to thank you all, for everyone who watched live or listened to it on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Spreaker, all of the platforms that we are across. If you're listening somewhere in the world, even if it's some other third-party podcast app, thank you so much. Your ears listening to our show means the world to us. We can't thank you enough. So we're going to be back on Thursday. Big note, we're going to be back on Thursday as soon as the Bears are going live on the clock. So maybe a couple minutes before. That way we give you our true instant reaction to who the Bears pick with the 3rd overall pick, and then we're going to analyze on the fly. This is going to be something we haven't done before, so bear with us, but it should be a pretty fun ride, and I hope you join us, because honestly, how much can you get from NFL Network or ESPN about the Bears? You're going to get a 2-minute spiel, and then you're done, right? And then you're going to move on to the next pick. So come over here, come hang out with us, and we're going to analyze whoever it is the Bears pick in the first round for a good 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour if we get that darn excited about who it is. And then we're going to be back on Friday night after the 3rd round, and also Saturday after the 7th. We're here all weekend throughout the draft, giving you our instant analysis and reaction to each and every one of the Bears draft picks. And then next week after that, we're going to have Larry Mayer on from ChicagoBears.com to give you his thoughts on on how the Bears drafted and what he thinks is that rookie class is shaping up to be. But that said, I'm your host, Will DeWitt, signing off from my fellow Bears brothers. We will see you Thursday as soon as the Bears are on the clock. I can't wait. I know you can't either. But until then, bear down, Chicago.